Where in Colorado?
Grand Junction.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
I lived there for 2 years.
That's crazy. I feel like I knew that. Have we talked about this
I feel
before?
like we have talked about this.
Yeah. That's wild. I think we have. Yeah.
Wait, so you were there for a year?
Yes.
Did you do school there?
Yes.
What school did you go to?
Columbus Elementary?
I didn't do school there.
Yeah.
I only know like Fruita because that's where my siblings went.
Yeah. I had some of my family lived in Fruita too.
Oh my gosh.
That's wild.
Do you go back often?
It's been a couple of years. We were going like every summer. My cousin did this kind of like big, essentially like a family reunion kind of a thing where it was like survival games and stuff. But then it kind of extended to like her friends and stuff. But it's been a couple of years since we've done that. So yeah. Am I talking loud enough?
You are. And I'm recording, and I'm probably include this because this is fascinating stuff.
But yeah, it's like, yeah, that's wild.
That is
I've
wild.
like met some other or people that I've known for a while that like I've found out that they have family in Grand Junction as well, or that they lived there for a time. And I'm like, what?
Why?
Of all the places in Colorado that you could be from, like Grand Junction, like that's wild. That's crazy. Yeah. Like some of my husband's family lives in Grand Junction.
Really?
Yeah. It's nuts. I'm like, how?
No
How?
kidding.
There are other cities in Colorado.
Yeah, and it has to be Grand Junction.
It has to be Grand Junction, yeah.
And so then if his family lives there, do you know where?
So it's like, I think it was like a very distant like uncle or something. Like he has some cousins that are in Colorado, but they're like closer to Denver, I think. But I think it was like, or maybe it was like they had family. I don't know. There was one year where we went back for Thanksgiving. And then randomly one of his old high school classmates had moved to Grand Junction. So she came over to my aunt's house to meet me. I totally forgot about that, but that was wild. Yeah. I was like, this is crazy.
It is
is
so
insane.
crazy.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. The amount of people I run into that are like, yeah, I've lived there or I have family there. A lady, I won't mention her name, but she used to be the executive director of Ballet Idaho. Mm-hmm. She lived in Grand Junction.
That's so crazy.
I know.
That's so crazy. My aunt and uncle owned a wrecking yard there. That when they like did the beautified junction thing, like they got like X amount of money from the city to
tear it down.
Yeah. And then they retired and yeah.
Good for them.
But I mean, they like working, so I think they're like bummed in retirement where they're like trying to find stuff to do, and like they still do some like odd stuff here and there. But yeah,
damn,
wild.
That is wild. I was there in December because my parents live there, so we're not originally from there. We moved there in '98 after I graduated from high school, and I managed to stick around for like 2 years, and then I left. But my parents went to Texas for a bit, and then now they are back in Junction. One of my brothers and his family is there, and my nephew, and
it's just that's like, so wild.
That is so wild.
Yeah, it's insane.
All right, let's start this.
That was the preamble.
That was. I loved that one. Hello, and welcome to the Essence of You podcast. I am your host, Steph Lokelani, and I am here today with my friend Chance Fuerstinger.
Hello.
We were trying to figure out how we met. We can't figure it out, but we've known each other for years.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it had to have been on some film set. I don't know, but because we've worked on the same, some of the same stuff, but it was like we were never on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we have a lot of mutual friends. So I don't know if it was did we just friend each other on Facebook one day or something? Is that what happened? I think that's probably what happened. And then I think it was still like a while before we actually met in person.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And I get out in the community and you get out in the community, but we don't really cross paths at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think this is the first time we've seen each other in several years.
Yes, I think so too. Look at us.
You're like, hey, I need some guests for my podcast. I'm like, sold.
Yes. Well, and I've wanted to talk to you forever just about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Because my algorithm you still pop up on my algorithm a lot. And I've noticed you review movies.
Yes, I do.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's always easier to review movies when they're terrible, because then I can say some quippy stuff about it. When it's like a great movie that like, I love this, I'm like, that's all I have to say about it. It was great. I loved it. Like, because if I love it, then I really want to like dissect it and like get into the real meat of it. But then that's a lot for a review that's just on Letterboxd, and then I don't want to like spoil it for people. But then I tried not to overhype stuff for people, because I'm like, I want you to like this, and if I oversell it for you, you're gonna hate it.
Yeah.
Because that's happened to me a lot, where people are like, this is the best movie I've ever seen, and I go and I'm like, was it? Was it? It was fine. It was a film.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I feel that same way. The one movie that was totally ruined for me, although I consider it one of my favorites, is Superbad.
Okay.
Because when that came out, everyone's like, you got to see this. It's the best movie.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I was like, well, it's not the best movie, but I will call it one of my favorites.
I know. I think by the time I actually watched it, and I was like, yeah, I laughed a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. But yeah, for sure, like the same kind of like, all right.
Yeah. And so I felt that way too about Hail Mary.
Okay.
I finally watched it over the last couple days because I don't have enough time to sit down for a full movie.
Yeah.
I loved that movie.
Yeah. We luckily we saw it in an early access screening.
Ooh.
I can't remember what it was. My husband got some sort of like promo deal or something for like one of our credit cards, and so we went to it like the day before it actually released. And yeah, I really liked it. There were like some stuff that I was like, okay, fine, I'll accept it. But like once we got to Rocky and everything, I was like, I love this character and I want him to have all the happiness in his little Rocky life.
Same. Well, and I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I didn't look at reviews. All I know is everyone was like, this is the movie you have to see. And no one told it to me personally. It's just the hype that was going. Yeah. And so finally it popped up on one of my streaming platforms. I was like, oh, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
I was so surprised.
Yeah. It was a fun movie, and it was very like heartwarming and just like the adventure was there, like the stakes were there. Like it was a really fun movie. I liked it a lot. Minus, my couple little gripes, but no movie's perfect.
No.
And some of the stuff that I probably had an issue with, other people probably loved, and they probably had issues with some of the stuff that I loved. So, whatever. But my husband does not read. He hates reading. So he'll listen to audiobooks. And so he listened to the audiobook like in anticipation for the film, and then was so excited to like go see it. And I was like, all right. And like, he's like never really like excited to go see a movie. And so, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
If he listened to the book prior to the movie, what was his opinion of it compared to the book?
He still really, really liked the film. He was like the things that they changed was interesting, and I didn't have him go into detail because I was like, I might want to read the book at some point. I have a hard time reading science fiction because there's always a lot of, especially when it's more like realistic science fiction, because there's a lot of like science and mathematics and stuff that I just like glaze over when they talk about it. I'm like, get to the aliens. I want explosions. Give me explosions and aliens and space battles and but yeah, he said that there were some changes but he was like, I understand, like I can see why they made those changes. So yeah, he really liked the film still. So
and so I'm sorry, I have to keep talking about this because I rarely talk to people about the things I watch.
Yeah.
What did you think of Ryan Gosling?
So that was actually kind of one of my gripes about the film. I love Ryan Gosling, but there were several moments, and it was mostly like, and I think it wasn't entirely his fault. I think a lot of it was the way the dialogue was written. When he was going into like when he was discovering stuff and he was like saying it out loud. Like it made sense when he's like in the room and like the other scientists are observing him and stuff. But then when he's on the ship and he's like discovering things and he's saying it out loud, it was like, oh, Ryan Gosling is not certain about what he's saying, or is conscious that it's awkward to say this out loud to yourself.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's only for the benefit of the audience. So that was like my biggest gripe with it, was that it was like, okay, yeah, we're conscious that we're only saying this because there's an audience watching the film. But otherwise, like I thought he was great. Like, especially once Rocky came onto the scene, I was like, like nobody else has ever had as good of chemistry as Ryan Gosling and this rock.
So true. Yeah. And I identified with their relationship because I work so much. I live alone. I have a dog and 2 cats. And like everything they went through, I was bawling for most of it.
I was like, this, you can't, like, we can't. You're going to make me feel all these emotions for this like sentient rock.
I know.
Like, I can't, like, I have a really hard time. Like, like I can handle like human death in a film, but as soon as like we get into like animals and stuff, like I have it like, and it carries over into like Game of Thrones. When the dragons are dying, I am devastated. I can't handle it. Like, but then like their human rider will die, and I'm like, it's fine, whatever. But the dragon, I'm like, it's like sinking into the ocean, and I'm like, no, what is happening? I can't look at it. But yeah, and it carries over to this talking rock. When he's like trying to save him, and I'm like, no.
My dog is 14 and he was looking at me and he's like, Mom, what's the matter?
What is happening? How can I take care of you? No, our cats are one of our cats is 14. The other 2 will be 14 in October. And like, we're getting to like, one of them is having some health issues. And so it's like, we're like gearing up and we're like not ready for it. It's like, cause I realized a couple months ago, I was like, oh, these are, because my husband and I have been together for over 10 years now. And I brought one of the cats into the relationship and he had the other 2. And they're like, you know, almost the same age. And when I moved in, I think they were like 2 or 3. So it's like, oh, this is the longest I've ever had the same animal in my life, and not to mention 3. So it's like, I'm like, I don't think any amount of preparation is gonna like get me ready for it. Like,
no. I had to say goodbye to 2 of my cats 2 years ago, and they were both 20.
Oh my gosh.
And I've got one now. I think this year he turns 12.
Yeah.
And then that means I have a 2-year-old. And so a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they love each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
and
good.
the little kitten, he'll be a kitten forever in my mind, but he'll chase Osiris, my older cat, who's very, very overweight. Like he weighs 28 pounds. So you hear this dunk, dunk, dunk down the hall, and then Tyke is like,
we have our Siamese cat she's a pretty chunky girl. But yeah, and like every once in a while she'll just get a wild hair and we'll just start like, they have little mice things. Well, we call them mice. It's just like a little, you know, bag or whatever. And she'll just be batting it around. And then I don't know, like she'll start like crying. But it's like, I can't tell if she's in distress or not, because like one of her eyes will go lazy. And I think it's like when she tries to focus really hard, is it when it gets really bad? And so I'm like, is her depth perception, is she just like in a panic state right now? So I'll like go up and I'll like try to like soothe her and like pet her and like get her to calm down. Yeah, she like, so when she normally will do that upstairs and we'll be downstairs and we can just hear her just like galloping down the hallway. But none of our cats like each other. They all hate each other.
Oh no.
Like, and my husband's cats, one of the black cats and then the Siamese cat, are from the same litter, and they loved each other when they were kittens, but my husband had never had cats before. And hadn't gotten them fixed yet. So they went into heat at the same time, and he didn't know what that was. But there was another cat outside that was kind of like looking in, and one of them was on the windowsill and was kind of doing her like, I'm ready to mate kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
So then he was like, oh, it'd be cute to like put the other one up there. And biggest mistake. They like, this was before we met. They just like tore through the house, like, you know, biting and scratching, and just, it was, and then ever since then they've hated each other. And then I come in with my other cat and they just can't stand each other. So it's just been 10 years of like a battleground of cats.
That's rough.
Yeah.
But I love that you guys kept all three of them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will be like, well, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And I've had animals that don't get along, and you know what? We deal with it and we work through our issues because we're not human, but we can work through our issues together.
Yeah, we'll work through them and you can just deal with each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, normally we can, like, they'll just kind of like grumble at each other a little bit to be like, hey, if you get any closer to me, I'm gonna attack you.
Yeah.
And so we'll be, normally like we're just kind of in the middle, just be like, okay, you go that way, you go that way. But sometimes like one will jump up on the other and not realize that, you know, they'll jump up on the bed and be like, you were in there. And then there's like a little, which is, it's always great when it's at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're in dead sleep. And
those are the best times.
And then my cat, she's not quite as aggressive as the other two, but because she just kind of will stay in like on her bed. But every once in a while, she'll just as they're walking by, and I can see it. I can see like the gears turning in her head, and I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do? And then one of them will walk by, and she's just like, wow. And I'm like, all right, come on now. Like, you're not supposed to be the instigator. The other two are the instigators, but she's our very vocal cat, and she will just yowl for no reason. For like, she's like, hey, it's really quiet in here. I think it should probably not be.
Someone needs to say something.
Somebody needs to say something, and I think it should be me. I have a lot to say right now. I have a lot to get off my chest, so I'm gonna. Yeah.
I love how we put words in their mouths.
I know, right? Yeah, we have very specific voices for each of the cats. I was thinking the other day, I was like, they should probably start being old lady voices because they're senior gals.
Yes,
but they're still very like. Most of the time, they don't really act like it. Like, they're still very like young, and none of them like a couple. Like, they've started to get like a little bit of gray, but they're like not real, like not a lot. So it's like I kind of like forget how old they are until one of them starts, you know, getting sick. And one of them, she's kind of the only one that is. She's our like main problem right now because she's got like kidney disease. And so every once in a while we'll get like a UTI, and then that's like trying to give her the medication for that is putting her in a lot of stress, and she hates it. And we just gave them some gabapentin for the 4th to just prepare them for that, and then just turned on like all of the fans so they'll just try to drown it out as much as possible. And I think she might have eaten the most of it because we had to like it's like. We kind of have, in order to give it to, if they won't take it, like if they won't let us give them the pill, we have to, you know, we'll open it and like put it in the food, but like they can taste it because they're like, this doesn't taste normal, so I'm just not going to eat it. So it's like kind of we got to kind of like starve them out to like get them to eat it. But she just was like devouring it, and then she's like stumbling around the house. I was like, is she gonna be okay? Is she gonna be all right? Like, it was like, and then she was on the bed, and then we have a bed downstairs that is like our couch. But she was on there and wanted to get down, and she just kind of like slid off the side of it, but then landed like completely gracefully. And it was like, she is really high right now. But she seemed like unperturbed by the fireworks, which I was like, that's the best. That's the best. So, but yeah, pets are interesting.
Yes, they are.
I looked at the wrong camera.
It's okay. I do it all the time. Yeah. So, speaking of cameras, you are an actor.
I am, yeah.
Tell me about that. You're an actor and, actor, writer, filmmaker, and acting teacher.
Yeah.
And I want to say comedian because I saw that you're going to be in a show here soon.
I am, yeah. And I haven't done any comedy for like 10 years.
I so want to go.
I did it very briefly in 2016. I did Boise's Funniest Person. And I like to joke that I was Boise's 6th funniest person because I was eliminated before the top 5. So I was like eliminated in the top 10. So there were like 5 of us that were Boise's 6th funniest person. But that's the joke, is like I'm Boise's 6th funniest person 2016. And then I like it was a lot of fun, but I was like towards the end of the competition, I was like really, really stressed out. Because it was like they were like hammered home, like you gotta like make sure like when you come in, you know, because they did. So it was like the top 20 competed, and then the following week it was like the mentors round or whatever. They didn't call them mentors. I can't remember what they called it. Coaches, I think it was the coaches round. So the coaches would do their set, and then they would draw out of the hat like who was their competitor for the top 10.
Okay.
But I think I don't think they drew it out of the hat. I think they assigned the top 10 to one of the coaches. But they hammered home. They were like, if you make the top 10, you're so we went from like a 3-minute set to a 5-minute set. They're like, your next set of jokes has to be 100% new. Like it can't be like, don't use anything from the first round. So I like, for like 2 weeks, I was like, you know, I didn't know but I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like start writing in case I get picked. And I did. And then I was just so stressed out going into the second round. I was like, I've got an extra 2 minutes and I can't reuse any of the jokes. I was the only one in the top 10 to not reuse a single joke.
Really?
Everybody, and I was like, are you kidding me? And then I got eliminated and I was like, it's okay. Like I was like really stressed out. But yeah, like, and I mean, not to say that, you know, they just used the whole same set, but like I was the only one that didn't repeat one single joke. But I also kind of like did stuff that they said not to do. Like I came in, I think I wore a blazer and they were like, don't wear a blazer. And I wore it just to be a smartass. And then they were like, don't use props. And I came in with like a magic wand. But then they were also like, don't be like anything specific. And I was like very specific, you know, it was a very like, it was like my whole set was like Harry Potter related, but it was like how it related to me because I grew up, you know, reading, you know, I grew up on Harry Potter. And so it was very like focused on that. So it was like, yeah, but then I was relieved that I didn't make it to the top because I was like, I can't imagine how stressed I would be. Because then you didn't have, you like we had 2 weeks going from 20 to 10. And then we only had a week going from 10 to 5. And then it was like a 7-minute set. And I was like, I don't know if I have it in me to do that. And then so I did like a couple of like gigs here and there. Like people would ask me to come and I would. But then I just kind of just stopped doing it. But yeah, and my friend, you know Crystal Moore, right?
Yes.
Okay. So she once I lost my job in December, I was like, I'm gonna be, you know, freelancing and doing so. She's like, I want you on some of my shows. So I was like, sweet, okay. Still like I don't think it's fully hit me yet that I'm gonna be back doing it. I'm like, I should probably go to an open mic to like try some of these jokes out to make sure that they're gonna work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully it doesn't bomb. Hopefully I don't bomb.
Well, okay. I think I can go because it's like the end of July. Mm-hmm. And I believe I have that evening off. So I'll go. Excellent. And I'll just laugh at everything.
Okay, just laugh at everything. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
It'll be my audience plant.
Yes.
But I was asking Crystal, I was like, I'm thinking about just doing like, talking about things that have embarrassed me in my life.
Ooh, uh-huh.
Because I feel like I'm on this silent journey with myself of like, just like new discovery. Like, and just like, because I don't like talking about myself. Mm-hmm. Which is like great for me when you were like, hey, and then I'm like, yeah, I don't like talking about myself. I'd love to come on. And yeah, so it's just like, okay, me on stage for 10 minutes. What do I talk about? Let me just talk about myself and all the embarrassing things that I've done. And just, you know, just get myself, like force myself outside my comfort zone and being like, hey, here's all the things that I've done that have really, really embarrassed me that like I'm certain people think about all the time, right? Even though obviously they don't because they're thinking about their own things that they've done that have embarrassed them. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
It's all I remember about you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I specifically remember this one time before I even knew who you were about this really embarrassing thing that you did. And I just want you to know that I think about that at all times.
All the time.
All the times.
When you said you wanted to be a guest on my podcast, that was the only thing I could think of.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it happens. But yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. That's not really like acting related, but because we were segueing into acting and then we just segued right into comedy. But yeah. So I'm an actor. I've been started out stage, started out with theater and then like kind of moved into film. And now I've kind of like gone back into theater.
That's cool.
And haven't done like a ton of film stuff in the last couple of years. Because it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's hard because like I'd love to just, get together with friends and make something, but I also like to be conscious of people's time and want to pay them for their time and talent, which is really hard to do when, you yourself are also trying to get paid for your time and talent. So most of the like film stuff that I've done recently has just been like for like the 48s when I have spare time to do them, when I'm not like actively working on a show. Like I haven't been able to do like an I-48 in a long time because I have like been in a show and I'm like, should I do it? I'm like, I want to do it, but should I? I'm going to not. For my own sanity, I'm going to not.
I stopped doing the 48s years ago because I ended up being the one who was there to pick up the packet, write the shit. I usually, toward the end, I did not act in it. And then, shoot it and then edit it. And you literally are not sleeping for 48 hours. Yeah. And I still had a full-time job. And at that point, I was like, I'm done. It is.
It's like a couple years ago, because I hadn't done one for a while. And a couple years ago, Jen Potcher was like, let's do a 48. It was H48 time. She's like, let's do an H48, just the two of us. I was like, okay. And that was probably the most fun I've ever had. Like it was the campiest thing ever. We were like ghost hunting podcasters. I was in really bad drag. It was like we started out in the morning and I think I laughed through like 5 or 6 of the first takes we were doing. It was I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it through the day. But we did. I got my act together and made it through, but it was like, and that was so much like, that's what it is. Like, that's the fun of it is like, cause I think like, I'm always like, I always get over ambitious with it. And then I like bring on too many people. And then I'm just like, conscious about their time and like making sure I'm not like wasting their time, and then I'm stressed and I'm like, they're not having a good time. This is the worst time they've ever had and I'm the cause of it. I am the root cause of their misery on this set today. Meanwhile, they're probably like having fun, but still I'm like, I don't like to waste people's time.
Same.
Which I think is partially why I don't like to talk about myself, because I'm like, nobody wants to hear this.
I am so similar, actually.
Yeah.
Like you get me into a situation where someone asks how I'm doing.
Yeah.
I answer the very surface, I'm great. Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, Frodo's fine.
Yeah.
Always save the dog because people always want to know.
Right.
Then I'm like, how about you? Tell me. And that's why I have this podcast. Yeah. So I'm like, just talk to me.
Just talk to me. Yeah. Yeah. And so, that's like part of this like new self-discovery thing of just trying to, get out of my comfort zone and talk about myself.
Good for you. Have you thought about like writing a blog or anything like that? Or is that old now?
I don't know. Do people still write blogs? I don't know.
I'm planning on it.
Do it. I thought about like a couple months ago, going back to my movie reviews, of like starting a podcast, but like specifically dissecting performances.
Ooh.
And I was like because I don't want to like dissect a bad performance, right? Because then like I want to like get into like the nuance of a good performance and like what the actor did that worked, and instead of focusing on like the negatives of what didn't work, because I think that's like, because you can it's easy to spot a performance that just didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And I think like dissecting a good performance and just like figuring out like, hey, this is what the actor did that like really worked, or this is what they did to prepare for this scene. That really paid off for them. And then like that would get me to, you know, like do some research into the actor's like method, you know, like what their method of acting is. So I'm a firm believer that any method is any style of acting is a method. I think like there's just this blanket of like, oh, their method, and that's why they're a nightmare to work with. But it's like no, those are just like
they're just assholes.
Yeah, they're just assholes. Every actor has a method, and it's just like, you know, so it's just like, so like learning about different methods that are different from what my practice is and what I teach, to just kind of see like what the merit of that style is. And yeah, because I think there's like, and I, you know, but then also like figuring out like which actors are students of the method that I am also a student of, to be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I understand. Like, this is why I was really drawn into their performance, because they do this, you know, they do the same work that I do. Obviously they're making millions, but
someday,
hopefully. Yeah. That's the dream, right? No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought about that, and then I'm like, do I have time to do that?
True.
With all the other stuff that I'm doing, do I have time to do that? Because, you know, it's like, and I, you know, I've never, I think, well, this might be like the second time I've been on a podcast or something. The other one, I also invited myself to. But I just reached out to him and was like, hey, like, I saw you guys did this. What would you think about doing this? And they were like, totally, yeah. And then I absolutely like monopolized the whole, like, and it was like, I think it was like 2.5 hours long.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's okay. I'll cut us off.
Yeah. You'll be like, all right, that's all the time we got.
Yeah. Someone's got to get back to work.
Right, yeah. But what were we talking about?
We were slowly transitioning into acting.
Yeah.
And I want to say I really like how you're approaching it, where you're dissecting the good acting and not the bad acting.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned your acting method. What is your method?
Yeah. So I'm very like Meisner based. So it's very like listening to my scene partner, like really taking them in and listening to their emotional life, being open and available for their emotional life. While also letting myself be open and available, but then also creating imaginary circumstances for the scene, which is very crucial for actors to really truly believe and live in the world of these imaginary circumstances and fully believe them, and then just kind of like leave all that at the door and then just deal with my scene partner.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's, you know, I always strive for that. And it's awesome when you have a director that kind of like lets you work like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to directors that are like, okay, now turn 2 quarters of the way. I need you to go downstage. Okay, why am I going downstage? Because you need to be there. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll figure out why I need to be there.
I'll find a reason.
Yeah.
I remember, so I never really studied acting, but I did it. I started in junior high as mostly background because I still lived at home, obviously, in junior high school. And I had to go home and babysit my siblings because I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So I could only spend so much, like maybe not even an hour after school. But then when I got to high school, I was able to spend a little bit more time doing drama club because my siblings were a little older. And that's when I really got into acting. And one thing our acting teacher in high school made us do, and I can't remember the exact term that we used, but we would write like journal entries about our characters. Oh, it was our inner monologue.
Yeah.
And I loved that because that, you know, you're playing. So let's see. One of the roles I played, I was the queen in Once Upon a Mattress.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that.
Awesome.
And so I had this, you know what her story is based on the musical itself, but then you write the deeper story. Like, why is she like that? Why doesn't she want, does Guinevere, not Guinevere?
I'm only like vaguely familiar with the story, so I don't know any of the characters.
Okay. The girl who comes in to marry the queen's son. I got to go back and listen to this. I used to know all of it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Fred.
Fred.
Fred was the nickname.
Okay.
Because the song was I'm in love with a girl named Fred. So now I need to figure out the full name of Fred.
Fred Wolfa? I don't know. That's the only I don't know.
Winifred.
Okay,
there we go.
That makes more sense
yeah.
than Fred Wolfa. I don't know if Fred Wolfa's even a name. Is that a real name? I don't know.
I think you should name your next cat Fred Wolfa.
But yeah, so that's kind of like, and I very much like I try to live by the philosophy. I don't like philosophy. I don't like philosophizing things, but I try to like live by the philosophy that if I ever know everything there is to know about acting, that I need to stop acting. Because it's like you can never know, because you can never know 100% of a human being, right? And that's the same thing. Like as an actor, you need to be open to discovering different ways of doing things. And like, so like I tell my students, you know, I tell them that, and I'm like, you're going to learn stuff from me. I'm going to learn stuff from you. You're going to learn stuff from each other. I'm like, it's very important that you put your phones away. And so that so that you're being respectful to each other. But then two, like you're going to pick up on things that like you might not pick up on being in it. Right.
Yeah.
Cause it's like part of the work is like learning how to be aware of yourself. But there's also like, there is still an element of like, I can't see what is going on. I can feel it, but I can't see it. So like observing another actor when they're really present and in the moment of being like, oh, but of course it's going to look different for that actor than it does for another actor. But it's important to watch each other. And yeah,
I agree. Well, and also like the phone aspect, let's say we were in a scene and my phone went off and I went to check it. Now I'm Steph again.
Yeah.
I'm not this character I'm playing with you. I'm back to me.
Yeah.
I was actually directing a short film that everybody got paid for because it was a client project.
Excellent.
And one of my actors, we are rolling. Cameras are rolling. Everybody's in the scene. Got a text, pulled his phone out. And I'm standing there and it took me a second. I was like, wait, cut.
Yeah.
What is happening right now? Your character does not pull out a phone in this moment.
Right, yeah.
I don't need to go.
Right, yeah. I know, it's it's so frustrating.
Yes, it is.
And I try like when I'm working, whether it's stage or film, I try not to look at my phone during obviously I'm not going to take my phone out on stage with me, but like even like back, sometimes I do. I just like, if I've got a lot of downtime, I'll be looking at it, but it just kind of takes you out of the circumstances.
It does.
And it makes it that much harder to get back into it. Especially because the world's in chaos right now. Everything's falling apart and everything's awful. So it's like, if you're like scrolling through Facebook or something and you just something dreadful has happened, or a family member's calling you because something dreadful is happening to another family member, it's like, well, now that's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So it's like, I gotta my focus needs to be here because this audience has paid to come see this, and they don't need me like being like not fully in the scene. My scene partners don't need me to not be, right? They need me to be there. Just as much as I need them to be there, right? So I try to avoid like that kind of distractions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not anything I would have ever considered previously because, as we discussed before we started rolling, we are both children of the 80s.
Yeah.
And there were no phones.
No, there weren't.
High school, no phones.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody had a pager,
Yeah.
So then there is no distraction in that manner. And then the further along we get in this life, when you are on stage or on a film set and there is a phone that comes out, it's like, no, you just totally pulled yourself out of this entire, like, we've created something here.
Yeah.
And now you're out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like I've gone in the last couple of months, I've gone on several tirades about theater etiquette.
Tell me more. I think I saw a post, but I didn't have a chance to fully read it.
So the play that I was just in, there were like, it was towards the end of the play, when it was Murder on the Orient Express, right? So this is like we're towards the end of the play, in the middle of the main character's monologue, the detective's monologue about how he has solved the crime and is just laying everything out. This woman in the front row's cell phone goes off, full volume.
Oh dear.
And rings for, I would guess, 45 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And it just like brought everything to a screeching halt. And here we are, like, I'm like, what can I do to help my scene partner in this moment? Because I can tell that it's like rattled him. But he's just going with it. And then he like looks to me, and like he told me afterwards that he was like, I looked at you because I was like, I'm off track and I'm not on the right spot. But he like totally was. But he just felt like he wasn't. He thought he wasn't, but he totally was. And then like once she finally shut it off, like I don't know if everybody else did, but for sure me and him both like looked out at her. And it was like she was moving at such a glacial pace. I was like, ma'am, we are like, we're at the end of this thing. Like, and then earlier this year I directed Doubt. And there was one show, it was opening night actually. Somebody in the audience was like talking for the first 5 minutes of the show.
What the hell?
To an extent that like the actors were they felt like so in their heads. And at intermission, like I had to make an announcement to not talk during the show.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the other people in the audience have paid to see this show.
Yeah.
The actors on stage have worked very hard to put this show together. Like nobody wants to listen to you talk.
No.
So then from that point on in my director's speech, I was like, and just for the next 90 minutes, let's just let all the talking happen on stage. Let's do that, right? It's like, it's baffling. It's like, and it's not, you would think it would be like younger audiences, right? Like people that, right? Like that, you know, had like a year and a half of like a pandemic where like nobody was going anywhere. So everything was at home, or they're like watching stuff on their phone and like are distracted and stuff. But it's not, it's like, it's older crowds.
Wow.
And it's just like, it's so frustrating. It's like, are you kidding me?
Oh.
Like the phone call, like I was so close to going off stage and taking it from her. And then we all kind of like decided after that point that like, yeah, we would, I think the director might've given us permission to be like, yeah, if it happens again, like everybody stop and look at them.
Yeah.
And it was like, sweet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're the one bringing this to a screeching halt, so we're going to call attention to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're all livid.
And I think that's a good idea too, because it forces everybody both on stage and in the audience to stop, because everybody's distracted anyway.
Right.
We all take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
The person turns the phone off, take another breath, and now we'll continue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, and I get it, like, so, like I saw Hamilton at the Morrison Center a few years ago.
Ooh, I did too.
Yeah, I've seen it twice now. I think it might have been the first time they came through the Morrison Center. I'm gonna circle back to a story about that, but sticking with what we're talking about right now. A lady like a few seats down from me, like her phone started going off. And she's like, she's like frantically trying to get it to turn off. And she can't get it to turn off because she's like, she's like shaking because she's like, oh my God, I'm like disturbing the show. So she like eventually like in frustration, like handed it to her son and he turned it off. And I felt so bad for her. So it's like, I get, like those things happen. But like, when they do, you hurry up and take care of it. Like you don't just like slowly pick up your purse and then like rifle through the bag trying to find it. Like you expeditiously turn that off. Yes. Because the problem is you, ma'am. You are the problem.
Yeah.
But okay, so for the first time I went, so I love Hamilton. I'm obsessed with it. I like listen to the soundtrack all the time. And I think they came through in 2021. My husband bought me a ticket and gave it to me as an early Christmas present, like in July. And he hates it.
Really?
He hates Hamilton. He doesn't like musicals to begin with. But he's also like, he doesn't really like rap. So he hates Hamilton. So he was like, there's a caveat to this to this ticket is that you can't sing Hamilton in the house anymore. Have I followed that rule?
No.
Has he accepted that? Yes. But then he asked me like a little while ago, like what is it that you like about it? So, and I just like, I don't know. Cause I don't like history. And obviously, you know, there's like embellishments and stuff with it that it's not like the full history. Right. But I mean, it's a musical. Right. And I honestly, I couldn't really tell him what it was. They're just like, cause I also don't really like rap. But there's just something like engaging about like the speed of it. I don't know. And it's just, I don't know. Like I just love it.
It's good. Yeah. I can't say I'm a huge fan of it just because I watched it that one time. Right. I loved it.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy the soundtrack and I don't keep it playing or anything like that. But I really did enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot.
What is one of the most recent musicals or plays you've seen?
Like professional one or just anyone?
Ooh, anyone.
I saw, I guess, because I was just in Murder on the Orient Express, and that was at Stagecoach.
Okay.
And there was, there's been like, I think like the last couple of years, there's been like a complete overlap of shows between Stagecoach and Boise Little Theater. So it's really hard. It's been hard for people that are in a show to go see the show at the other theater. But fortunately, we went an extra week that the show at BLT did. So they had a matinee on their closing weekend, which was our third weekend. So we were all able to go see that and support them. And that was She Loves Me, which I guess it's a musical. And I guess it's like the source material for You've Got Mail.
Okay, I've probably heard
but they're
that.
like perfumists instead of like booksellers or something. I don't know. But it was like, I thought everybody like sang really well. Like but it was just like, there wasn't like a ton of story to it. So it wasn't, I wasn't like gaga over it, but like, it was fun to like, see my friends and they all, were doing the thing and being great. And I love supporting my friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And when you teach acting, do you teach it more for stage or film or kind of both?
Kind of both. It's more kind of cementing the foundation of the work.
Mm-hmm.
But then also like reminding them that the idea of public solitude, which is the balance between the actor knowing that there's an audience and the character just existing in the reality of the world, and just finding the balance between the two and trying not to overcorrect if you realize like, oh, actor me is suddenly just fully aware of right. And now that's just taking all of the weight of it and has fully taken me out of it, and just like learning how to just get a good balance between the two. So it's like, I guess it's like not really specifically for either, but it's definitely like useful for both.
Yeah.
And I guess like maybe it does maybe go more for film, because in film you don't have to do as much, and I like, right, because you're not playing to the back of the house, right? Yep. You're playing for camera, so it's like you don't have to be big like you would have to be in a theater to make sure, but so it does I guess allow for more of the nuance of your emotional life, and just like realizing that like, oh, I don't have to like cry, or right, like, because I don't feel like cry, right? Like it's like, and it's like just kind of like learning how to dissect the text. I always say, and I say this as a writer, as well as an actor and a director, is that the dialogue is bullshit. The text is important, but the dialogue means nothing, because there's a million different ways you can tell somebody that you love them, right?
Yeah.
You can say it from a place of love. You can say it from a place of hatred, right? There's so many different ways to say it. So it's like, don't try to play what you think the text or what you think the dialogue means, right? You play it from a place of truth, from where you're living, regardless of where the scene is going. And for class, I'm like, right, like we're not doing this play. Like if there's a scene from like The Odd Couple, right? Like we're not doing The Odd Couple. We're doing this scene from The Odd Couple. It doesn't matter what the rest of the play is, right? This is all we have, right? So it's your job as the actor to create emotional, right, like imaginary circumstances for yourself, and then craft a relationship between you and your scene partner, cast any other characters that are mentioned, right? Because it's like you've got to have a point of view about the other characters that we don't see. Otherwise, you're just saying a name, right? Like, oh yeah, Susan is just really rude today. It's like, okay, well, who is Susan?
Who's
like,
Susan?
What's your point of view about Susan, right? Yeah, and then I also like I'm also a, like actors have a tendency to like when they're doing like an improv, they have I say they, but I like we as actors, I think we have a tendency to like want to make sure the audience is they fully understand what's happening. So it's like suddenly now we're just divulging a bunch of exposition, and it's like no, the two of you know this, so there's absolutely no reason for you to say this now. The only reason why you're saying it is for the audience's benefit, but it's bringing everything to a screeching halt because now we're dealing with all this exposition. So I like a few weeks ago, and I think a couple times since, I went on like a 5-minute diatribe about exposition and how it's the death of storytelling.
It is.
I hate it so much, and like I admit there's a certain level of exposition I think that has to happen, right? But it's we're unfortunately in a time now where people are so distracted and they're watching stuff that the exposition is being repeated several times. So it's like if you're a person that is paying attention the whole time, then now it's like, I'm hearing this again. I'm hearing, that Susan ran over her husband, right? Like I'm hearing that for the third time, right? So what I always try to what I try to impart to actors, and what I try to do myself, is when I have to have exposition, when I have the unfortunate task of being saddled with exposition, you have to have a point of view about it. You have to know what that does to you, how that makes you feel, what your opinion is of it. Like you've got to have a clear point of view about it. Otherwise it's just exposition for the benefit of the audience. And it's, yeah.
I think I read or heard some data recently about that. And there is a lot more exposition going on in film. Film was the specific medium of this. And it's because people are on their phones. Mm-hmm. So the point of repeating 3 times, like you just said, for those of us who are paying attention, we're like, well, this is boring. Yeah. I'm done watching.
Yeah.
But everybody else, they're on their phone.
They're like, this show is so great.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, by the 3rd time, they're like, oh, that guy killed that girl.
Yeah.
And it's so sad that that's the route we're going. As storytellers, you're a writer, and I want to get into that too before we run out of time here and I cut us off.
What are we at right now? Okay.
Yep, we're good. But yeah, that's too bad. And I'm currently working on 2 documentaries, but there's one in particular. It's so fun. And one thing I have to be very careful about as I start going into post-production on this is the exposition, because we don't want to tell people what they're seeing. It's a documentary. We want them to take from it what they need to take from it.
Right.
And so I invited Christy Lucier in, and she's going to help us tell the story. Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yeah. We actually start tomorrow. We're doing a few days we're calling it a retreat.
Yeah.
And I met up with one of my friends this morning for coffee, and she's like, I'm so excited for your retreat. And I was like, okay, let's back up. Maybe I shouldn't call it a retreat.
It's not a retreat. We're going to be working.
We're going to be working a lot. But Christy and I and my co-producer are going to sit down. We're going to go through 3 years of content, and we're just going to start putting that story together.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I've always wanted to do a documentary. I had an idea for one a few years ago, because I was like, I had just gotten a new job and there was a gym right next door. So I was starting to go to the gym, and I noticed one day that there was no elevator in the gym, and like all of the equipment was like, there was like treadmills downstairs and then like some like free weights, but like everything else was upstairs. And I was like, people with disabilities like also like to work out.
Yes.
Like, why is there no elevator in this building for them to get upstairs? And then it made me think like, I want to do a documentary like that's focused, like that's without me inserting myself into the middle of it. I want to like bring people with disabilities like together to kind of talk about their shared experience and what that's like living with the disability, what it's like living in a society that actively works against them. Cause like one of the things, like, every year, like, when it rolls around, like the anniversary of marriage equality, like I always like to highlight that like gay people can get married, but a lot of disabled people can't because they'll lose their disability benefits, so it's like, we don't have marriage equality because not everybody can get married. Right. So so it was like, I want, and then I just couldn't figure out like, well, one, I just really didn't have the time to really sit down and get into it. But also I didn't know how to go about doing it because I've never done a documentary before. I was like, do I just put cameras on people and just like tell them to talk? Like, what do I do? But it is something that I've been thinking about lately now that I don't have a full-time job that I'm like, oh, I do have like the time to try to really sit down and and maybe what it is that I just start recording stuff and then find the story in the recording. But then there's also like, because I feel, like a lot of documentaries aren't impartial, but like, I don't think there's like, when it's a human rights thing, I don't think there's any way that you can be impartial because it's like, you either are or you aren't, right? Like, it's like, you either want people to be able to live healthy, free lives, or you don't. And that's that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
So, but it is like how do I tell this without it seeming like I'm, like, I don't even know, but yeah.
I have some ideas. We should grab coffee.
Yeah, let's do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to add to that really quickly, one of the things that I absolutely despise is any sidewalk when those scooters or those e-bikes or the green bikes or whatever they are, people park them in the middle of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
How is anybody in a wheelchair supposed to get around that shit?
It's so infuriating. It's like now they have to go off of the, but there's no way for them to get off because it's a sharp little falling off point, right? But yeah, let's totally grab coffee.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We definitely will.
Okay.
Because I have other questions for you. Oh yeah, writer. You mentioned that you are. Where did it go? You're rewriting a book that you first wrote over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So, so before that, even I mentioned that, I was a big Harry Potter fan, as I think everybody my age was at that time. And I decided, I was like, I want to write a book too. So when I was like 11, I had read the first 4 books because that was all that was out at that point. And I had read that, I think I had read them like 4 or 5 times through. And then I was like, I want to write. So I wrote a novel that was 60 pages long.
Yes.
And then that turned into like, I had this whole plan. It was going to be like 13 books long. And then in high school, I think over the course of like 2 years, I wrote a novel. It's like over 400 pages long. That I can't even look at because I'm like, I know it's going to be really cringy. But it's like, I still know, right? Like I know what the general idea that I wanted to accomplish with that was, but now having more life experience, right? Now it being, I'm 20 years older, when I was 16 years old, I didn't have like a worldview, right?
Right.
It was like,
yeah.
Right? Like I didn't have opinions about things that were happening outside of myself. So now I have a clearer idea on like what what I want the story to be. And what's interesting is because I've been writing it, and I've been writing every day. I've been good about writing every day. I posted something about it on Facebook, I think yesterday or the day before, that was like tracking my progress so far. And I was like hesitant about doing it because I feel like every single time I do something like that, where I'm like, hey, I'm working on this thing, and then the thing I never see it through. Like, I don't know if it's some psychological thing where I just like psych myself out or something. I don't know, but like I was like, okay, no, I've hit 100 pages, so I'm gonna just be like, that's where I'm at currently. As of right now, I think I'm at like 125 pages, which is 27,000 words roughly.
Wow.
So I'm chugging along. I'm a day ahead of my goal. So my daily goal. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But yeah, so it's a fantasy book. And when I write, I don't really like to outline.
I don't either.
And I like, more power to the people that do like to outline, right? Because like, but I just like to write and just see where it takes me. And then, and this was a big thing too, that like I would never read something that I'd written. And I would like edit as I was going. And I'm trying to avoid doing that right now. I'm trying to just like free write. But I would like edit as I'm going, because I'm like, I'm an impatient person. And if it's not good enough the first time, then why am I even doing it? Right. But I've gotten a lot better about going back and like, okay, this doesn't work. Like this doesn't work because of what happens here, or like this shouldn't have happened here because of what happened before it. So like now I've got to, tweak it and stuff. But like, I think there's a lot more fun in that. Like I'm a lot more willing to be like, okay, yeah, how can I make this the best it can possibly be? Like, what can I, so that's a lot of fun, just kind of like discovering these things. And what's really interesting right now is that currently I'm doing it like, I've got like 3 different points of view going on right now. And before it was just from the perspective of one character, and that character is like not even the main character anymore.
Oh,
which I think is interesting. Like the main character, like I would say the main character, the one who's had like the most points of view chapters so far, was just kind of like a supporting character that came in like halfway through the book the first time I wrote it. Yeah, so it's essentially, it's like, it's in this like magical world, and there were like these like magical races. Like we have like elves and dwarves and centaurs and like harpies and mer people and stuff, that kind of like they were kind of the center of all magic in this world. And then there was like this massive civil war between them. And then what the treaty was, they had like poured all of their magic into these stones, and then they break the stones and kind of like disperse them throughout the world. But that unknowingly to them kind of like destroys all of their own magic. So now it's kind of like, it's fast forward. I haven't decided what the timeline of events is of where the main story takes place from that point in time. But the main character is now like searching for one of these stones. But like I want to avoid it. I want to avoid those stones being the MacGuffin, right? Like the magical MacGuffin. That's obviously like kind of what they are, but I have some ideas on how I can tweak that narrative to make it not so. But I'm really fascinated with the idea of like the magic system being something that you kind of have to pay for. To just kind of highlight like the classism within the society of like only the wealthy people can afford to do magic. So like their lives are, they benefit greatly from this magic. And yeah, that's kind of, I think where it's heading. And then also like making it more of like an adult story, because when I wrote it in high school, obviously it was for an audience of me, right? It was for a 16-year-old boy. And yeah, just kind of writing and seeing where it takes me. And yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so you're doing freelance stuff.
Yeah. I lost my job in December, which was perfect because I had talked to my husband. I was doing medical billing, which is just soul sucking.
I bet. Yeah.
It's just like, 'cause insurance companies are just, I mean, I could go on forever about insurance companies. They're just dreadful. And just everything is they just want to, bleed American people dry, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're dying of cancer. Well, I'm sorry. We're just going to not approve this life-saving medication, right?
Even though you've been paying $500 a month for 10 years.
Yeah. And so I would try to, if I would talk to a patient before they came in, I would really let them know, like, hey, when you call your insurance, they're going to tell you that this is covered. What that means is that they will allow you to have it. That doesn't mean that they're going to pay for it. So I really try to like hammer that home with people because I'm like, because it's duplicitous, the language that they use. Because, you think covered. Oh, cool. I'm not going to have to pay for anything. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, now you're saddled with this like $1,200 bill. It's like, that is due immediately. Right.
Yeah.
So I was just miserable, and I was in like a leadership position. So we were a third party company. So I was having to deal with clients, and clients are a whole other, like, on top of having to deal with insurance companies and patients all day. Now I'm having to deal with clients who don't understand how any of this works, but they have an idea in their head of how it works. So suddenly it's my fault that it doesn't work that way,
yes.
right?
Did you check the numbers?
Right. Did you check the number? Yeah. And so I talked to my husband and I was like, hey, I am miserable at my job. And I had been thinking about it. So I kind of like had this whole plan of like, this is what I would like to do. I would like to quit and pursue like acting stuff full time. I already have like this lined up I can do. I have this lined up I can do. If I'm teaching more regularly, like that's going to be a steady amount of income. It'll be less than what I'm making right now, but I will be happier. And he was like, I fully support that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hold out at least through the holidays in case I get a Christmas bonus. Right.
Yes.
And then in January, I will put in my 2 weeks. Well, they just decided to expedite that a little, so it came like, I think a week or two before Christmas. They were like, hey, your position's been eliminated. And there was like a person on the call that like I had never seen before that I think was like a mediator in case I like went ballistic or something. And I was just like, I don't think they anticipated the reaction that I had. I was just like trying not to smile. But yeah, and then a couple weeks later, my husband got a raise. So I was like, sweet, perfect.
Awesome. Perfect.
So it's been really nice that like, but I'm still trying to like find my footing a little bit of like, okay, how can I like keep myself busy, like, right, like throughout the day so that I am not just sitting here not doing anything. And I was just back to back plays. I haven't not been in a play since like January of 2025.
Wow.
So this, and I'm going into rehearsals for an Agatha Christie improv show.
Oh.
Where we're doing like a hour 10-minute show where we just improvise like a murder mystery or something. We did, so it's an offshoot. We did last 2 seasons. We did like a Jane Austen improv show that went over really, really well. So now we're doing an Agatha Christie one. And we start rehearsals for that in August. So we wrapped Murder on the Orient Express a couple weeks ago. So this is the most amount of time I've had not actively working on a show. So I was like, okay, now's the time to write.
Yeah.
So that's what, so I've been trying to just, as soon as I get up in the morning, just sit down and start writing.
Good for you.
And don't, try not to look at my phone, because it is just that constant distraction right there. So I'll try to like put it behind me. not do anything else until I've done at least a little bit of writing.
Good for you.
Yeah.
It is on my calendar every morning. I don't do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's on the calendar.
Yeah. What's wild is that because I the first couple of days I was behind the schedule that I wanted, and then I got ahead of schedule for 3 days, and then was behind for the next 10 days. But now that I'm a whole day ahead, it's I feel a lot more motivated to write. When I'm behind, it's I have to write, and it's I don't have to. If I'm not feeling it, I don't have to. But but I kind of just getting over that hurdle of this is an obligation where it's no. I'm telling this story because I want to tell this story.
Yeah.
I'm telling a story because I need to tell this story, right? But then also I hadn't written everything that I'd written for the last 10 or 15 years have just been scripts, and there's just a lot more to write. I mean, not that there's not a lot to writing a screenplay or a stage play, but there's just a lot more that has to go into it to write a novel, right?
Uh-huh.
Because you have to have the character's inner monologue. You have to describe kind of what the surroundings look like, because you're the one painting the picture.
Yeah.
Whereas film or theater, production team does all of that, and then the actors just help bring the rest of it to life. But I'm finding it since I'm just I'm not editing I'm doing a little bit of editing as I'm going, but I'm trying to catch myself and be no, don't do it. But there's a lot more just freedom and just letting it kind of appear to me. That's just a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I will buy it when it comes out. I won't ask you when it'll be done.
I know, right? I know. I think once I finish the draft, however long that's going to be, I think I'll because I've heard from authors that you want to remove yourself from it for a little bit before you go back into it, and then just specifically focus on one thing while you're going back through and editing it. And then the last thing that you should focus on is grammatical stuff. Don't worry about any missing commas or focus mostly on story stuff first, and then kind of just keep every time you go through it, it's your focus is on something different.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because then otherwise it gets overwhelming where you're well, this is wrong, this needs a comma, this this is a question, this other character said this already, and then you're it just becomes overwhelming, and then you're I'm not going to do it. So it's give myself a little bit of time, and then go back through and actually read it and tweak it, and then maybe have some people read it and give me their thoughts on it. And because I think that's important. You need to have, right? It's good to have an outside perspective because you're so close to it.
Absolutely.
And then be okay with killing your darlings.
Yes.
Is a big thing that I think a lot of writers, probably including myself, struggle with of no, I need this in here. And it's do you though? Do you need it in there?
Really?
Do you really need it in there? I'm all right, fine, I'll get rid of it. Right, pull my teeth out.
My entire life is killing my darlings.
Yeah.
And taking a break between so yesterday, for example, I finished a short film for a client, and I was nope, you don't need to send this to them. You said you'd have it done this week. It is a Monday. And I haven't watched it back yet, but the plan is to watch it today.
Yeah.
And be am I still happy with what I've done? Now you can send it to the client.
Yeah.
Because inevitably there could be something that you could find, or you could be actually, no, this is fine for a first draft.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
absolutely.
Killing your darlings. I have to do that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's even easier when it's a client's project. You're nope, nope,
yeah.
nope, nope.
I'm not married to this, right? And then too, it's don't ask for feedback unless you really want it, right?
Yes.
That's something that I had to learn was just initially, it took me a million years to even be comfortable letting other people read my stuff or, watch my stuff. But now it's okay, I want I want genuine, honest feedback. Rip it apart, please. Don't just tell me it's good. I know that it's not like I want to know what's working and what's not working so that I can fix it. And I feel like a lot of people, they just want the praise.
Yep.
And it's like, you're not gonna make any changes. Like you think it's perfect as is. Like I don't know what to say then. I don't.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too, is like when you ask for, you have to prepare yourself for feedback. And then anytime people tell me, like, no matter what it is, they're like, I welcome feedback. My first question in my head to them is, do you really?
Do you really? Yeah.
Because I could give you feedback, or I could just say, that was awesome. You did a great job.
Yeah. And then when you do give honest feedback, and then they're just like, well, the reason for that is, and I'm like, no. But then also being able to recognize, like, when the feedback, isn't conducive to what you're, like, I wrote a one season, like, teleplay a few years ago, and I submitted, like, what's weird about, like, submitting scripts to, like, film festivals, like, is if it's a series, they only want the pilot script.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was like, but there were a couple of times where I just, like, had it all in one document and then submitted it that way. But like, the biggest kind of feedback that I got for that was that, like, the characters weren't likable, which was the whole point, because the name of the show was I'm a Bad Person. So it was like, it was 100% the whole point. So then it's like, okay, so, like, they're just reinforcing this, but it's like, do I need to tweak it so that audiences see that there is potential for these characters to become likable, right? But it was like, kind of the whole point of it was, like, the main character was an active alcoholic, so he was kind of, like, just blowing up his entire life, and then dealing with the ramifications of it while not accepting the fact that he was an alcoholic until the very end of the last episode. And then it's more about, like, I had it planned for, like, a second season, where the second season, each episode would be, like, him working through one of the steps. And then by the end of it, it's not that, like, it's not a matter of a redemption arc for the audience, or for him, for the audience, or for any of the other characters. It's a redemption arc for himself, of being able to accept the things that he's done, and then just trying to move on with his life and be a better person, right? Yeah. But
yeah, feedback.
Yeah. Feedback, yeah. I was like, where were we? What were we talking about? Yeah, feedback. But yeah, so yeah, just recognizing, like, when the feedback is beneficial or not, because you are gonna get people that are just, like, that are not giving constructive feedback, right? That are either just, like, ripping it apart without giving any, like, suggestions on how to make it better, or they are just telling you, like, yeah, it was great, it was amazing. It's like, no. I do really want feedback. Like, please give me the feedback.
I want to make this good.
I want to make this good. I don't want to just make it for the sake of making it. Like, I want to make it good. I would like there to be an audience for this. So help me be my first audience to tell me what is working and what's not. Yeah.
And do you have plans to produce that?
I would like to. I was going to do it a couple years ago, and then just kind of had a mental health crisis. And then that's kind of, like, why I kind of moved back into theater after an extended hiatus from doing anything creative, where I was just, trying to make myself okay again. And then I, like, recently I've been, like, contemplating trying to turn it into, like, a stage play.
Ooh.
And then, like, trying to challenge myself to isolate it to 2 locations. I think I might have to expand it a little bit. because it's not. I've gone to it a couple of times and I don't think it quite works in just 2 locations. I think it needs to be in a couple, but just kind of like condensing it into from what it is as like a TV series. But I do want to produce it for sure at some point.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
Well, before I get there, is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay. Ooh. Do you have any dream roles?
Oh, yes. So for if in a perfect world, if I could sing, a dream role for me would be King George in Hamilton.
Okay.
That's just such a fun character. And I kind of got to do it a little bit a few years ago. I played Prince John in Sherwood, which is a comedic adaptation of Robin Hood.
Oh, fun!
And I very much injected a lot of King George into Prince John. But yeah, so that's a dream role. And then like I've got like several. Like another one, I would love to play Salieri or Salieri, I don't know how to say it, in Amadeus. Because it's such a meaty role, and it's such a that's one that you could like really sink your teeth into. Yeah, I think those are my 2 big ones.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The role, my dream role of all time is Sally Bowles in Cabaret.
Yeah.
And anytime like that song will pop up in whatever music I'm listening to, and I will stop whatever I'm doing, unless I'm on set.
Yeah.
I will stop whatever I'm doing and I will belt it out, and I'll be like, "You'll never be Sally."
Yeah.
But you can keep pretending.
if we were doing a gender bent show, then yes, 100%. Like I would love to play Sally Bowles. Like that would be such a like. I guess I'll settle for the MC. No.
Yeah.
I love Cabaret, and that's too like. I used to not like musicals at all, and it was very like I don't know what it like. I just did not like them, and then I watched Cabaret like a few years ago. I watched Cabaret for the first time. I was doing like an Oscar movie marathon where I watched like and I think I got through like 240 movies that had won Oscars. And I was like going into like before I started it, I was like, okay, how did this beat The Godfather for the most Oscars that year? But I mean, Godfather still won Best Picture. And then watching it, I was like, Godfather won Best Picture over Cabaret? Like, excuse me, what?
Mm-hmm.
That was like just blew me away. I was like, this is such a good. And then there's it's based on a book. Goodbye to Berlin, I think is the title of it. That's essentially about people in a cabaret living through the upswing of Nazism in Germany, and it is a very like queer story. And it's like, oh, is there like a non-musical version of this that I could do? Because I could for sure do that because I like would like to do this show, but I can't sing or dance. So, but yeah, Sally Bowles would be,
yeah,
or Ursula. Love to play Ursula.
Oh, yes. Okay, so then next up, you need to write an adaptation with no music of Cabaret so that people who aren't that awesome of singers can be in it.
Yeah, right.
We're going to take the positive side of this.
Yeah. Not everybody can sing, and that's okay.
No, and that's
right?
okay.
Right. Yeah.
It takes all kinds in
and
this
like,
world.
listen, I will 100% take an okay singer in a role as long as they're fully committed as the actor than a perfect singer who can't act, right?
Yep.
Or is not great at acting, right? Like, because you're pouring your heart and soul into it, and if like your vocals aren't quite there, like I'm willing to forgive that for it being an incredible performance. But,
sell it to me.
Yeah, sell it to me. Yeah, sell it to me as the actor, and then it's fine. And maybe that's just because I'm selfishly like, yeah, I can do that. Like, I can't sing either, but
Well, it's so cute. So I'm the board president of Treasure Valley Children's Theater.
Oh, awesome.
And they just did High School Musical.
I love it.
And it was so cute because some of the kids they can sing, but they need some work.
Yeah.
But they're out there just playing their heart out.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God,
It's
I
just,
love you.
like when they're just giving their all, it's like, oh,
yes.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
And they loved it. And I was there for closing night.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was so precious because as they got to the closing number, there were a bunch of kids who started crying. And because you did theater as a kid.
Right? Yeah.
I did theater as a kid. You know what that means.
Mhm.
Like you just spent however long it was rehearsing for
Right.
this.
Yeah.
And you got to shine and pretend play basketball on stage.
Yeah.
And it was so precious. And then you watch the kids start crying while they're still trying to belt out that closing number.
Yeah. I remember now as like an adult, I'm like, okay, the show I'm ready for it to be over.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for sure, like I remember I did Midsummer in high school. I played Demetrius. And I remember like closing night, like we were all just, because it was the last show of the year. So we were getting ready to go into summer. Half the cast were seniors, so they were graduating, and we were all just weeping.
Yes.
We made it through the entire show and we made it through bows without crying. And then, we did it outside, so we had to bring everything inside after the show. And then just we all kind of went back into the drama room and we're just a mess. But it was this is, it's awesome. And I've judged for a couple of the drama competitions the last couple of years, and just it's so cool to just watch the kids. And this is something that when I did the drama competitions, it was all the kids are there to support each other. They're all so supportive of each other. And it's just you don't get that with sports. Sports, it's your team sucks. But the kids all want each other to succeed, and they're all there for each other, even when it's not good. Even when it's they're just they're there for each other. And that's just such a cool thing. That's just,
It is.
Yeah, I love it.
I do too. I'm so glad that I got to experience that as a kid.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, final question.
Yeah.
When everything external falls away, like our titles and our labels, who are you at your core?
Oh man. God, that's a tough question. Man, I don't even know. So last March, I got officially diagnosed with autism. That was something that I was suspicious about for a long time. And growing up, in when I was a kid, I had never heard of autism. I didn't know what that was. And discovering that about myself, I realized I was able to start piecing together I wasn't having temper tantrums. I was having autistic meltdowns, right? Which is because I was a very angry person when I was growing up. And it was a lot of stuff that I have been actively undoing as an adult. Because I don't like to be an angry person. I don't like to be angry around other people. I don't like people seeing that side of me. Cause it's I'll go from zero, I will, something happens that makes me angry, I will go white hot, and my vision goes red, and then everything tunnels, everything peripherally blurs, and it's just I just hone in on whatever is immediately in front of me, and then that kind of glosses over once the anger subsides. So just finding out oh yeah, I'm on the spectrum. Okay, that makes a lot, because I wasn't set up with the tools to vocalize, what was happening, right? What was going on, right? There wasn't, it's not as it wasn't as talked about then as it is now, right? I didn't become aware of autism until I was in my early 20s. I had, friends that are autistic, and started learning more about it. And then I had a couple of my friends that were who are on the spectrum that were they're we have a lot of similarities. I think like, you might be too. And I was like, okay. And then I was like thinking, I was like, okay, I want to go get tested and see. And then, I like came back and I was like, okay, well, this is putting a lot of things into perspective for me. And it's like making things a lot clearer. But then also like autistic people mask a lot, right? Where, and like how that manifested for me was that I would like I became a people pleaser, right? Because I wanted everything to be okay. I wanted everyone to be happy at the expense of my own happiness and comfort. Like if I'm at a party and I'm ready to go, I have to wait for somebody else to leave before I can leave. And then if I miss my window, like if I go to the bathroom and somebody else leaves, then I have to wait for the next person. Like I can't, it will be hours and I'll be like, I have been ready to go for so long and I cannot leave. No. And then I'm just like waiting. I'm like, please, for the love of God, somebody get up and be like, okay. And then I'll be like, oh, it was so much fun. But like, I think I'm still figuring out who I am as a person. I think I'm learning how to set boundaries for myself with other people.
Good.
And especially the people closest in my life, right? Because I think those are the hardest people to set boundaries with. It's easier to set a boundary with a stranger where you're like, I need you to get out of my face right now. I would like you to not be so close to me. But when it's people that, you care about, it's like, you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? So you just kind of like let it happen, even though you're uncomfortable. So it's like being able to set those boundaries and just kind of just like figuring out who I am underneath all the masking and underneath all of the kind of baggage that has accumulated because I've been masking for so long, because I've been, feeling like I can't be my authentic self. So I think that's my period of discovery. I'm trying to discover who I am and my own like authentic self, and just trying to do that creatively. And yeah. Is that an answer to the question?
That is a beautiful answer. And I'm glad that I get to witness this too. And anyone coming to your comedy show, by the time this episode airs, I think the comedy show will have already happened. But for us too,
yeah.
Anyone coming to your show, they'll get to kind of experience that as well, because you're going through your exploration phase.
Yeah. Which is, so we'll see how it goes if I, completely bomb and have something else to talk about that was embarrassing, right?
You can just add it to your list.
I know, add it to my list. So I did this show last year. I was talking about all the things that embarrassed me, and now I get to add that to it too, because it bombed. Because it was dreadful. Nobody laughed.
Oh, except the one that I planted.
Except the one that I planted. She was laughing uproariously, and I thank her for it.
And everyone else in the audience is like, "Will that woman shut up?
Can that woman stop laughing?" I'm such a loud laugher when I like go to stuff. Like my friends always tell me, they're like, "We love when you're in the audience because we know that at least one person is laughing," and because I am so loud, I am just too. And like sometimes I get self-conscious about it, but I'm like, no, this is funny. I think this is hilarious, and I'm gonna let them know.
Absolutely. Well, and especially if no one else in the audience is laughing.
Right. Well, I think too, a lot of times audiences less so when they go to like a comedy show, but like because they're but like. I feel like sometimes audiences are a little more tentative with laughing during a live show because they're like, I don't know if I can laugh. So it's like if I'm in the audience, I'm like, hey, everybody's got permission. You guys can laugh. Like, so here we go. I'm starting us off.
Yes.
And then once, I always feel like not to be like I'm the reason why people were laughing at you, right? Because like obviously it's funny, but it's like I'm laughing because it's genuinely funny. So it's just helping the audiences be like, we can totally laugh. This is a comedy.
Well, and I don't ever want to be in the audience that your friends who have been on stage, they're like, oh, the worst audience was on Thursday. And you're like, oh shit, that was me.
That was me. That was the one. I know, right? Right? Yeah. They're like, they were just terrible. I'm like, I did my best. I tried to let them know it was okay.
I laughed the whole time.
But yeah, and like, I'll go out and like greet them afterwards. And every single, even people that I don't know, they were like, it was so fun to hear you out there. I was like, And I'm like, I've never talked to this person in my life, but they clearly like, because they'll be like, somebody backstage was like, who's that laughing? And they're like, oh, it's Chance.
I love that. I used to be that person. I need to go to more shows so I can be that person again.
It's fun to be that person. I love being that person when I'm having a good time, and then like letting my friends know, like, hey, I'm having a good time. What you're doing is working for me. So keep doing it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It wasn't that bad, huh?
No, it wasn't. Like once
good.
I just started talking and I wouldn't shut up, it was
Good.
Yeah.
It was really fun having you.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun being here.
Good. And thank you for watching and listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.